Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
As I'm moving it, as I'm changing it, are you seeing it?
Yes, 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 yes. What is HTML?
All right,
Web
good. Thank you.
Development and Design Foundations with HTML5.
Good. All right. So the book we are using, actually, this course, as I mentioned, there will be a book. I thought I should have shared the book with you by now. The title of the book is Web Development and Design Foundations, HTML5, the 8th edition of the book. I'll share with you that book so that you can use it. So good. So in today's class, we are supposed to, we're supposed to learn how to know how to describe HTML, XHTML, HTML5. You know what we mean by HTML, XHTML, HTML5. Be able to identify when we say markup language. What is a markup language? You should be able to identify a markup language when you see one in a document. Be able to use HTML and understand HTML head and body, title, meta elements, and what have you. Be able to also configure the body part of a web page with headings, paragraphs, line breaks, divs, lists, and more. Be able to also configure a web page using what? HTML5, header, nav, main, and footer elements. You want to configure a web page. You want to also configure special characters. You want to use the anchor element to link one page to the other. You want to, and then you should understand what by absolute, relative, and even hyperlinks. You want to write code in HTML, save it, and also view it on a web page or a browser. So to begin with, we'll begin by what is HTML. In our previous sessions, we learned about the internet, how it evolves, and all this stuff. Now we are looking at HTML, which is one of the things we need to learn in order to be able to build websites. So what is HTML? We say HTML is a set of markup symbols, codes that is placed in a file intended for display on a web browser page. And the World Wide Web Consortium, that's W3C, they set up all the standards for HTML. So they are in charge of setting everything about the language. Now, in HTML, we have what we call elements. So each markup code will represent an HTML element. And each element has a purpose. So in this course, you are going to be learning in HTML, you're going to be learning about the various elements we have and what is their purpose. Most of the elements in HTML are coded as pair of tags, whereby you have an opening tag and a closing tag. And the tags are enclosed in what? Angle brackets. That is angle bracket is the less than and the what? Greater than symbols. Every tag has every element has an opening tag and a closing tag. And every opening tag and closing tag, they all are enclosed within brackets. So take note of these symbols. You'll see them as we go when we start looking at the elements. Now, currently we have HTML5. HTML has evolved from several versions, and currently what we have now is HTML5. And this HTML5 is just improvements in the version or in the HTML to support modern browsers, and also it adds new elements, new functions, and what have you. We have a term called document type definition. That is DTD, document type definition. Basically, a document type definition is just a doc type statement that identifies the version of HTML that is contained in a document. And usually you place it at the top web page. So up here is DTD definition. If you are writing your code in XHTML, we are not using XHTML in our course. Our focus is going to be on what? HTML5. HTML5 is going to be our focus. So the doc type, the doc type definition for HTML5 is this here. This is how you define a doc type. Okay. When you write this particular code in a document, then you have defined the document what type. Okay. And you can see the left hand, right hand thing I was talking about. All right. Now let's look at an example of an HTML5 web page. So this you've here, the whole of this thing you see here, that is code written in HTML5 language. And you can see the less than and greater than sign that I was talking about. Good. Now this is the doc type definition, the DTD. That one comes first in your document. You write this code first. Then followed by the language definition. You write HTML language equals to what? EN. Basically, this means that the language is English. The content language is English. Then we have followed by the head tag. The head tag, this is the opening head tag, and this is the closing head tag. You remember I mentioned earlier in the slides, somewhere here, that elements are coded as pair of tags. Some having what? An opening tag and a what? A closing tag. And they are enclosed in what? Angle brackets, which are shown here. I hope you remember. Okay, so let's get back here. Now, these are elements. These are the elements we are talking about. In HTML5, you write what? Elements. So this head element, this is the opening one, and this is the what? The closing one. The difference between the opening and the closing is the slash that is in between here. Then we have the title. Okay. This is the opening title element, and this is the what? The closing title element. And whatever is in between here, okay, is the content. Very soon, you'll see the purpose of this, what it does to the browser when you open this kind of document. Then we have the meta element to here. Then we have the body. The body has an opening and a closing what? Tag. In between the body, it says what? Body text and more HTML5 tags go. So all other HTML5 tags will go in between body. Then finally, this opening HTML element, this is the closing of it. So this one, its closing is here. It contains the rest of these, right? Good. Okay. Now let's move on to the next slide. Now here, I will do a quick explanation. The head section, what does the head section mean? It contains information that describes the web page document. It contains information that will describe the web page document. And this is how you write it. You have the head here, the opening head element and the closing head element. And The header section info goes here. All other information you want, you put it here. Then we have the body section. The body section contains text and elements that will display in the web page document. We have the opening body tag, the closing body tag, and anything that you want to display, you want that thing to be displayed to people when they visit your website. You put them in between the opening and closing of the body tag. Now look at this image critically. We have a file, okay? This is just a file, index.html, open in Notepad. And then we have written all this code inside it. Now, when we open this file in our browser, which you can see, this is a browser display. You know, this is a browser. When we open this file in a browser, this is what we will see. The image you see here, that is what you will see. Now, let's look at this critically. You can see from the top here, that's the tab, the browser. You can see something showing my first HTML5 web page. Now, see this arrow. They're part of this code. This title, the purpose of the title is to display the information that is here. So you can see that my first HTML5 web page that was kept in between the opening and closing tag of the title is what is being showed here. Then this hello world. The hello world here is being shown on our browser based on because in between the body, the opening body element and the closing body element, we kept the text what? Hello world. And that is what is showing on the browser. So basically, to build a website, you have to write your code in what? In a text, maybe using Notepad or any other document like Visual Document Editor, code document editor like Visual Studio Code. So now you will know the purpose why I said you should download Visual Studio Code. It's for us to be able to write code. So if you create a document or a file and then you write this code inside, then you open this file inside the browser will analyze this code, the HTML code you have written, and what? Display it. It will not display the code, but it will rather analyze each of the tags. So each tag, I mentioned that every element tag has a purpose. And from this preview, you realize that the title element, the purpose of it is to display an information on top here for browser. Here is the tab. You know, when you are browsing, you open several tabs, and on top of the tab, there's some writing. Good. So that writing is being picked from the title element. But now anything that will show in the body area or in the main content area of your browser is based on whatever you put in between the body elements, the closing body, opening and closing the body element. As you can see, we have hello world here, and hello world alone is also. So that is the relationship, or that is all about coding in HTML5. So now we are going to proceed to learn several different elements, beginning with what? The heading element. So in the heading element, this part is the code, and this part is how your browser will display the code. So if you write H1, opening element, and you put in the content heading level 1, and you close it, this is how it will display on the browser. So for each element, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, it has the way it will display. So that they are not all displayed in the same size. That is because each of them displays in different sizes. So let's go to the next, which is the what? Paragraph element. Paragraph element, I want to see if I can have a timer. If I can have a timer so that I will know how much time we have spent. Just a moment. Good. All right, so far we have done 21 minutes. Let's proceed. We will do roughly 40 minutes. Okay, so the paragraph element, also, this is how you write it. You write your paragraph, opening tag, closing tag, and the content or message you want will be here. And what does a paragraph do? A paragraph groups sentences and sections of text together. And it will display, it has a block display. It configures empty space above and below. So just like how we write paragraphs, if you have paragraph in the Word document, whereby you see that if somebody writes a text in paragraphs, you know, you can distinguish between the first paragraph, second paragraph, and that order. It's the same way that the paragraph element also what? Space information. The next is a what? A line break. So for line break, what does it do? If I have some information, then I put this. This is how you write a line break element. You just do the opening and closing tag, and you put BR. This will start on a new line, meaning it will display some any information that comes after this BR, it will display it on a new line. We have a block quote. What does a block quote do? It indents a block of text for special emphasis. And this is how you write it. This is how you write it. So there are several other tags too when it comes to text. So the several elements. So here this is a table where you have the element, the example, and then the usage of the element. I mentioned earlier, every element has a purpose for you to use if you are writing or if you are coding a website. So this course is all about you just be learning a lot of the elements and their purpose and then how to use them in a website. So we have the B element. What does it do? Its usage is that it boldens the font. So it will make a text bold. We have the EM. It's what? It causes text to be emphasized in relation to other text. Usually it displays in what? Italics. So any content that you put, you wrap it in between the EM element, it will what? Display it in what? Italics. You know what italics means. We have the I2. The I2 also display italicized text as well. We have the mark. The mark, you see, any content you put in between this mark, it will have this highlights, yellow highlight on it. We have the small. So this small, the example, you see that this small and then the text, this one is more smaller. It means this particular content is wrapped. If you wrap a content in between the small element tag, you would have it displayed like this. Similarly for strong, strong also will make things bold, will make your text bold. And we have sub and soup. So you can see from here, if you wrap a text in a sub element, this is how it will display relative to other text. If you wrap a text in a sub element, this is how it will display relative to what? Other text. Good. Now in code, when you're writing HTML code, you can do what we call nesting. You can nest code in between. Look at this particular code here. First of all, we have a paragraph. This is a paragraph element. And look at it, this is the opening. And this is the what? The closing of the paragraph element. But in between it, we still have another I element, which is for what? Italic. And then that one too, it ends here. This is the closing. Now, in between it too, you still have another what? Strong element, which is wrapping these figures, and it ends here. Remember when we were from this diagram, we said the I element, it was displays text in what? Italicized. Now, if you type this in a document and you view it in a browser, you can see it says what? Browser display. This is how you will see it in a browser. Now you realize that all other information is what? Italicized. It will display it in italicized way. But the numbers part is in bold. That's why, because we are putting the numbers part inside the what? Strong opening and closing elements. So that part of the content will become what? Bold. So basically, this is what we call what? Nesting of code. So you can have a P tag that wraps everything, and inside it you can have other what? Element tags, like how we have the I tag that is also wrapped inside a P tag, and we have a strong tag that only wraps only the numbers in the content. And now the browser will display it like this for us. Okay. Now in HTML, we have what we call lists. Lists. So just like in real life, you want to list something, you write one. Maybe you want to list your hobbies, you write one, this, two, that, three, that. In HTML, you can do the same thing. We have three types of lists: unordered list and ordered list. And what? Description list. But we are going to focus on unordered list and ordered list. You would I'm just giving an assignment right now. You would read on description list as part of the major assignment I'll be giving. You also implement description list for me. So, but I will not be explaining this. I will explain on ordered list. All right. So now, here, unordered list. What does unordered list do? This is how, if you write HTML code in your file, if you view it on the browser, this is how it will display it. So an ordered list displays what? A list in the form of bullets, bullet points. And to do that, you have to use combine UL and LI tags. For example, if you write this, see that we have the opening UL element or element tag here. This is the closing. Now, in between the UL, you will now have each of your list item wrapped around an LI element. So we have LI opening, LI closing. So TCP. TCP will display like this. Then we have IP. The IP will also come. HTTP, it will also come. So if you write this code in your document and you view it in your browser, it will list it like this. So if you want to list items like this, then this is how you write it. The next is what? The ordered list. So for the ordered list, it displays a numbering. So each list will number it. This is the example. You can see this is how an ordered list will display on your browser. Every list is numbered. But if you want to write the HTML code, you write it like this. We have OL opening, OL closing, LI, LI for each of the lists in that order, and the content will be in between. For description list, I mentioned is an assignment. We have what we call special characters in HTML. When you write something like this, this is the results you will get. If you write end, copy, semicolon, you will see this in your browser. If you write end, AMP, semicolon, you will see this in your browser. If you write this, you'll see this in your browser. If you write that, you will see that. So these are what we call special elements. And this symbol just displays blank space. Now we have something called a div element. What does a div element do? Configures a structural block area or division on a web page with empty space above and below. It can also contain other block display elements, including other div elements. So I can have an opening div and closing div. Basically, opening div and closing, a div is just an what? An empty space. Okay, and we can have content in between. So look at this. This is a structure, an HTML structure, typical of how a website is being displayed. You have the header section, you have the navigation section, you have the main section, and you have the footer section. And this is the code. See, the header section will contain the web page documents headings. The nav element, this nav element, this is how we write it. It also contain what? Navigation. It also contain navigation of the web page. Now the main element also contains the what? The web page documents main content. So the main content can have combination of divs to group every element you want or every section you want to display. And now we have the footer section, which is being presented by what? The footer elements. So look at this particular page. This is a page that has been opened in a browser. You can see Firefox browser. Look at how it looks. Up here, we have the heading. We have home services contact, the navigation, the nav. That's what we talked about here. Then we have what? The main content. From here to here is the main content. We have a paragraph, no, a header, a heading tag, paragraph, heading H1 tag, paragraph, and the footer area. And we have what we call the anchor element. The anchor element is basically used to what? Link text. So if you want somebody to be able to click on an option, then open a web page, then you use the A anchor element. And this is how we write the anchor element. You have the A opening, and the closing. Inside it, we see that there's what we call, there's a writing called href is equals to what? Now this href is what? An attribute. We call it an attribute. And it indicates the file name or the URL where you want the person, when they click on this contact us on the browser, where you want the user to visit. That's what we call the anchor element. And then it uses the word href attribute. Now we have concepts like absolute linking and relative linking. I will leave those ones to as an assignment. You will read about it and you will present it. So please be taking note. Now we have the email hyperlink. If you want somebody, when somebody click on an email, if you want to automatically open a mail, a mail or something, then you will need to what? Use what we call the mail to. Just write mail to column and then the email of the person. Once the person clicks the text, it will open what? Mail box for the person to write a mail. Yeah, so this brings us to our lesson. Now we would need to do some practice or some practical activities. So we have gone through almost a lot of elements in HTML, okay, and their purposes. If you want to know the purpose of them, you just need to refer back to your tutorial. But now at this stage, I'm going to end my code. Going to end my code and yeah, we'll now start coding. First of all, create your first web page. This is what you need to do. You need to begin with. Now we are going to start writing HTML code. We have learned about a few elements. You need to have a folder, a dedicated folder. So right click on your desktop, go to new, you create a new folder. Now this new folder, we need to give it a name. I'm going to give it a name. Let's say web development class, like this. So I've created an empty folder, okay, and I have what? Its name as web development class, and it is on my desktop. The next thing is to open my Visual Studio Code. So to open your Visual Studio Code, all you need to do is what? Click on your search button and look for Visual Studio Code. I've already asked you guys to install Visual Studio Code. So if you have it installed, you just need to open it. So you might be wondering, what is Visual Studio Code? It's just an editor, okay, where you write code. Mention that HTML is a code that you write. You write it in the document. You create a file, you write the code, and now you open the file inside your browser, and then your website will display. So sometimes when you open Visual Studio Code, it might open with something like this or an existing code. For the beginning, you just probably have to open a folder. So you click on open folder, and then you direct it to the folder you just created. So the name of the folder we created is web development class. I want you to see how I've written the web development class, not in capital letters, in small letters. So once I highlight it, I'll select the folder. And then I'll click select folder. If you get this pop-up, just do what I've done. You can close this welcome message. Now you can see web development class is just a folder that doesn't have any content. Nothing is here. It doesn't have any content. So we are going to create our first file. You see, when I hover, bring your cursor somewhere here, you will see it. You see a tip that is what? New file. So now we are going to create a new file where we will write code. So I'll click on new file and I'll type index.html. Once I'm done typing, I'll press enter. Right? Good. So now when I do that, you can see it has opened my file here, and now the cursor is blinking, and I can start writing code here. This is similar to when you are creating a Word document. You create the Word document, and now you see the cursor blinking, and when you start typing, everything is coming, right? This is a similar way. We're going to write code for our first website. However, I'm going to follow our lesson outline. Yes, so you see this code here. I mentioned that when we write a code like this, it will display like this. So we are going to write similar code. So see the doc type, I'll write this. Now you have to note that when you are typing, Visual Studio Code can make suggestions to you. For example, when I was typing, when I just wrote my less than, it suggested a lot of things for me. And the first one, doc type, is actually what I want. Because I mentioned that that is the first thing that you should write in your code. The next is what? HTML. So you write HTML. When you write, you press enter. Now, you see that the HTML I have long is equals to what? Here. It's in between here. And the HTML has a closing tag. So you can see already from the beginning, I have already created the HTML opening and closing. What is left is just to do long and I'll put EN here. Now in between here, I'll have my what? Head tag, my head element, sorry, title element, meta element. So the head element has an opening and what? Closing. And inside it, we have title and meta. So when I do head like this, and I have the opening and closing, I will now write my title in between it. So the title will be what? My first website. That will be my first website. And inside it, I have meta. Meta with a character set of UTF-8. UTF-8. All right. So we are done. That is all for the what is in between the head tag. Now the next is the what? The body tag. The body tag will now display whatever information, the main content of our browser. So now the body tag also comes after the what? The head tag. So I'll now have my body tag here. And inside it, I will type hello world. Yes. Now, we have just created a file. So I want you guys to check something. Remember that when I created this web development folder, there was nothing inside. But after what we have done now, when I open that folder, you will see that there's an index file here. So what does this tell? It means that when we create a new file inside the Visual Studio Code editor, we're basically creating a file and saving it inside what? Our index. Okay? Okay, now when we are done with this code, the next thing to do is that you right click, just right click anywhere in your code, and then you see what? Open with Live Server. Guys, I hope you have installed Live Server. I mentioned that you should install an extension called Live Server. By now, you should install it. If you don't see the Open with Live Server option, it means you haven't installed Live Server. We have to come to extensions here. Extensions here. Sorry, you have to come to extensions here and then search for what? Live Server. Okay. So I have Live Server installed already. So basically, Live Server will make it easy for you to view your website on the browser. So I'll just right click on the code area and I'll go to Open with Live Server. Click on Allow. And immediately you see that it will open your browser and it will open a tab. So you see Hello World. This is showing on our browser, and that is basically the code we wrote here. That is basically the code we wrote here. Now, all the remaining tags that we have learned, from the heading tag, paragraph tag, and all of what have you, we will now write them in between the body tag. So now let me do a paragraph T, like this. And then I'll just do lorem ipsum. I'll just put a dummy text. This is just a dummy text inside the paragraph. Right? Now, when I view the page, you can see that an additional set of what? Information has been shown on the browser in the paragraph text. Have you seen that? Good. So I can have, all you need to do is just implement all these tags I've been mentioning or we went through. So as you can see, this code I mentioned, if I copy this code, this one, remember I mentioned that if you type it like this, you will see it display on the browser. So I'm copying this and pasting here. So I need you guys to do something. You go to File, okay? This thing will make things easy for you. You go to File, and then you make sure this autosave has been checked. If there's no check, just click on it and then it will check it. What it means is that any code you write in your file, it will save it for you so that when you view your browser, it will just be there. Okay. So make sure you do that. You can see how the code is displayed. Remember, as for loading a website, you write the code in your HTML file, and the browser will only show the content, like English readable content, not the tags. The browser doesn't show the elements. It only reads the what? The individual English content you have written. So this is just like the foundation. At this point, I want to now throw an assignment to all of you. At the end of the day, I want you to write a code that will display like this. If you gather all the knowledge, all the elements that you have learned from here, based on the display, like if you gather all of this, I want you to gather all of that knowledge and write a code that will display in your browser like this, like the preview you are seeing here in my slide, like this preview. Okay, that is the assignment, including the assignment of the description list. You have to implement it in your code. And what other? The mail to. Did I mention this? Absolute and relative linking. You need to also implement this. That is the assignment you have to do. And on today is Monday, so hopefully Thursday you present it to me virtually ahead of Monday. However, are you guys with me?